Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Wednesday, April 8th, 2026, coming at you live from Floored Media here in Rockville Center. Got an awesome show coming up for you tonight. Josh Bailey, Micheal Haley hanging out with us. Can't wait to talk to them. Going to be fantastic. With me, as always, is Mr. Arthur Staple. My name is Sean Cuthbert. Arthur, how are you?
Not too bad.
Yeah, hanging in
feeling
there?
a little down here in
Why is that?
I can't imagine why. Hopefully we'll just gloss right over it and talk about the good stuff. Get a little nostalgic with Hales and Bales.
Yes,
It'll
yes, we need that.
Yes,
we
for
need
sure.
that. So, folks, before we dive in, I want to thank our wonderful sponsors, Razor, Kniff, and Launstein, attorneys at law, ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That is RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. And if you're hanging out with us live in the chat, you want to get your questions in for later, type in questions brewing, followed by whatever it is you have to say, and we will answer that question later on in the program. So, Arthur Staple, it was a horrid week for the New York Islanders at the worst possible time. So why don't we just blaze through that real quick and get to the big topic at hand. So real quick here, we go back to Tuesday from Chris and Tony's. We had a fantastic time there with Hallen and Keith and all his boys and everybody that was there. Great time that night. Buffalo Sabres blew a 2-2 tie late in that game with about 4 minutes to go. Losing regulation, and that's the beginning of this week that ends up just going in a tailspin from there. Somehow they were in that game for a time, but it just didn't last. Then we move on to Friday, completely embarrassed at home, 4-1 against Philly, and obviously an extremely crucial game, the next crucial game after the Pittsburgh folly on Monday night, right? So Philadelphia came out, outshot them a lot to a little in the first period. Islanders didn't have a lot to show for it. Get blown out 4-1 at home, and everybody's feeling pretty bad about that. And then you wonder, can they salvage a couple of points against the Carolina Hurricanes? No, Arthur.
No, they cannot.
They cannot, because they are embarrassed once again. 6 shots through the first 2 periods, and they make it interesting, but not interesting enough, despite they had 2 leads in that game somehow. But of course they cough them up. They lose. That's 3 straight regulation losses, and here we are now outside looking in the playoffs. And not only that, it's looking really, really bleak.
Yeah, you just about summed it up. I don't know if I could add anything to that. It was a really consequential week, and obviously we know a little bit more about that now with what happened on Sunday. But yeah, it was, the Buffalo game was disappointing. But I think you can bounce back from that, especially with a couple of days off. But seeing the way they came out against Philly, getting outshot, what was it, 10-0 through the first 12 minutes of the game?
Yeah.
Really unfortunate to see that, and just sort of had you questioning, has this team hit its limit? Is there anything left in the tank? They go out the next night, and Carolina does what they do, and you can't let them get to that game. And the Islanders, even with those leads, the shot at 32-6. The Islanders had 13 total shot attempts through 50 minutes of that game, and you can't win games like that, even against a team that does what Carolina does. So Carolina, who didn't really have a lot to play for, obviously they want to win the division, but they seemed like they were headed that way anyway. Really, really tough watch. Those last 2 games, and clearly Matthew Darche felt the same way that everybody out there did.
Yes.
Which leads us to?
Yes, indeed. Matthew Darche pulls the trigger and fires Patrick Waugh, brings in Peter DeBoer. So, Arthur, let's just start with your initial reaction, because I think most were shocked. I was. Where were you?
I'm shocked at the timing of it, sitting there on an Easter Sunday where it's going to be quiet and you're sort of picking up the pieces from this terrible week. But I think my instant reaction was, if this was going to happen, which I felt like after that week, Patrick Waugh was not going to be the Islanders coach next season. I think that seemed pretty clear, that whatever he was trying to do, the season that Matthew Schaefer's had, the season that Ilya Sorokin has had, other guys, Bo Horvat, Emil Heineman, Matthew Barzal, there's been great contributions, and they have overachieved to a certain point. Mm-hmm. But the things that were not working from the beginning of the year that were kind of papered over by the good vibes and the way that they were playing team defense, particularly D-zone defense, giving up way too many chances, looking disjointed at all times, a terrible power play that was never fixed the whole year. I think those things really kind of came up in a big way. Obviously, in Carolina, they gave up a shorthanded goal late to really seal the deal in that one. So I feel like those things were kind of never fixed, and you're left there thinking, I understand you can say what you want about the roster, certainly the trades that Matthew Darche made or didn't make to augment it, but I feel like they've just been floating along too much. It's always a desperate chase to either just barely get in like they did a couple years ago and get bounced quickly, or not get in. So it just seemed like Patrick Roy was not going to be the guy that was going to carry this team forward, however the roster was going to look. So that's one piece of it. The second piece to me, I think, is very exciting because Peter DeBoer was probably the premier coaching free agent that was available. And I think Matthew Darche said it. It's like, we got the best free agent out there. And man, when has an Islanders GM ever said that?
For sure.
So you have to be aggressive. You look at what Vegas did, and obviously them firing Bruce Cassidy and bringing in John Tortorella. That's a very targeted move. John Tortorella is who he is. I don't know. He's not even signed beyond this year. So that was a very specific decision for Vegas to try to give themselves a boost. But I think in this, it really wasn't about these last 4 games trying to get in. It was about, we've got this guy, we've signed him for 3 years beyond this. From what I can understand, he's a lot closer salary-wise to Mike Sullivan, who I believe is making $6.5 as the top paid coach in the league, than it is to someone that you're just sort of bringing in on a temporary basis. So they've made a huge commitment. They're paying out Patrick the remainder 2 years of Patrick Waugh's deal, which adds up to about $6 million total. So it's a real commitment from Scott Malkin, from the ownership group, from Matthew Darche to say, this is our guy. And Peter DeBoer is not coming in to meander around and float the way the team has floated for the last 4 or 5 years under the last couple of coaches and the last year of Barry Trotz's tenure. Like I've said this a lot, it reminds me a lot of when Lou Lamoriello came in and hired Barry Trotz basically off the parade float in D.C. When he was he wanted what he wanted from Washington. They didn't give it to him, and Lou said, that's our guy. And you can remember, it's sort of hindsight is 2020 now to think about how it worked out so well. But Barry came in, he commanded a lot of respect in a room that was kind of reeling from all the changes and change that was to come with John Tavares leaving in free agency. And he said, we are going to be the kind of team that plays hard. Everybody is going to feel it after they play us. And I feel like Peter DeBoer, with his track record, he gets guys to play that way, especially the first year. You think about taking Jersey to the Cup final in his second job in 2012, taking San Jose to the Cup final in 2016, getting to the conference final with Dallas, with Vegas. This guy gets results. I understand he hasn't won the ultimate prize, but when you're looking at who's out there, it felt really decisive to me, and I think that's what you want as a fan, is to see your team pick a direction and go in it.
Yeah, and it's funny you say he still hasn't won the ultimate prize, because I've seen some voices come out and saying, the guy hasn't won anything. He hasn't been able to cross the finish line. But look at a guy like Paul Maurice. He was a respected coach who's been in the league for years and years and years, and he didn't win until he won. Right? And he won 2 in a row. So, I mean, I just feel like that's failed logic there. But I'm excited about him coming in. But just to get back to the reaction, like my initial one was shock as well. And I was like, that's, 4 games left. What's going on here? And I was like, man, they really want to get into the playoffs, huh? But then, you take some time to think about it, and you hear what's had to be said and all that. And there is logic to it. And for me, like, it had to be like the perfect storm of, dominoes to fall for this to even happen. Because look at it this way. Let's pick a game or two, right? Let's say they beat Chicago. Or let's say they hung on for 13 seconds against Ottawa and hung on with Buffalo. Just got 2 points somewhere.
Yeah.
They're still in a playoff spot after losing to Carolina.
Sure.
So this doesn't happen, right? There's no way this happens.
Right.
So basically, this little slide they've been on, it just opened up a window where, like, as far as I'm concerned, I imagine that Matthew Darche perhaps was thinking similarly, like, if the Islanders don't make the playoffs, Patrick Waugh's not coming back anyway.
Right.
If they win a round, he might not be coming back. I feel like that might be fair. Either way, if he's already of that mindset, 3-7 in the last 10, lose 4 in a row in regulation, outside looking in, it just opened the window to say, well, I might as well just do this now.
Yeah.
I might as well just And it accomplishes a couple of things, right? Gets that number one free agent that he wants, that he was probably going to go after anyway in the summer with competition, right?
Sure.
So he has a chance to get him. And also, maybe it's the kick in the pants for this team to win out or close to it, to give them a chance to get into the playoffs. Yeah. So with all of that in mind, I get it. And separate of all of this and the timing, like Peter DeBoer as the coach of the Islanders, I'm excited about that. If that happened over the summer, I'd be like, yeah, sign me up.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it really is the Barry Trotz situation. It's one of the most established guys ever to come here. And
yes.
You think about obviously the dynasty years, Al Arbor and that team grew together. But since then, have we seen anybody outside of Lou coming in and Barry coming in where you said, wow, people who have options, who are
right,
probably headed to the Hall of Fame in their chosen careers, have chosen the Islanders. And that is an important part of this too. When Matthew Darche reaches out to Peter DeBoer, as he said on Saturday night, to kind of gauge his interest, Peter DeBoer knows that Toronto's job is probably going to be open, maybe Nashville's job, New Jersey's job is probably going to be open, Edmonton's job might be open. There's places with teams that are further along, that are more established, that have more skill, and he could have his pick. And he said, nope, I want to come here. And that says a lot. I think it says a lot about what Matthew Schaefer has done.
Mm-hmm.
It says a lot about the ownership's commitment. I think you can sort of figure out that this was a mutual connection, and it wasn't just a desperate coach who's hoping to hang on and get another job. This guy's coached continuously in the league at a high level for 20 years. He was going to have his pick of jobs. So you got to be aggressive. And he was interested. So I think those are all good signs for the Islanders.
Yeah, I consider it with all circumstances. When you consider them, I think it's a win. But we got a break for Micheal Haley. So Thank you so much for tuning in to Hockey Night in New York. We're going to take that break. We'll be right back.
When in need of representation, it's not always easy to know where to turn. But whether you've been accused of a crime or need to go to court, Razor, Kniff & Lonstein, attorneys at law, have you covered with over 100 years of combined experience. With offices in Manhattan, Mineola, and Suffolk, Razor, Kniff & Lonstein is an award-winning law firm specializing in criminal defense with additional expertise in business debt settlement, trust and estates, personal injury, and more. At Razor, Kniff & Lonstein, you'll have direct access to your attorney 24/7. Because more attentive service translates to better outcomes. You deserve legal representatives with national recognition and a strong track record of delivering results. And Razor, Kniff & Lonstein are ready to fight for you. Call 212-LAW-1500 or go to razorandkniff.com to schedule a free, no-risk consultation today. That's RAISERANDKENNIFF.com. Razor, Kniff & Lonstein. We win cases because we make your problems our problems. Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest. And Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook. Or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The train rolls on here at Hockey Night in New York. It is time for On the Line, presented by Razor, Kniff & Lonstein, attorneys at law. And joining us right now is Mr. Micheal Haley. Micheal, thank you so much for joining us. How are you? Micheal, are you there?
I'm there.
Hey, Mr. Haley, thank you so much. How are you, man? Thanks for coming on.
It's good to hear you and good to see you, Hales. We wanted to get you on the show regardless to talk about the old days with the Islanders, but I think we're going to start with a little bit of the recent Islanders news. They hire Peter DeBoer on Sunday. He's coaching his first game for them tomorrow night. And you played for Peter in San Jose for a couple of years, about a decade ago. Can you just tell us what he's all about and tell the Islander fans what he's all about that makes him such an appealing candidate to coach this team?
Yeah, I had the pleasure of him coaching me, and I can't say enough high praise for him, especially personally. He was a huge reason that I was able to stick in the league and play as long as I did. He's a great guy to play for, and he's a great human being, which you can't take away from coaching's one thing, and hockey's great, but I found him to be a very good person as well, and very easy to talk to.
What, part of the reason that the Islanders general manager Matthew Darche brought him in, the Islanders have had trouble defending, and he's a guy who seems to demand a lot at both ends of the ice, especially on the defensive end of structure. What do you remember about kind of X's and O's stuff that really, the attention to detail that he brought to that Sharks team? Yeah,
well, I can only speak to the team we had, and obviously we had a pretty good decor. So, but his philosophy was don't sit back. We actually made it very hard. We made it hard to enter our zone, and that was just as important as your decor forwards. We tracked, we weren't giving you anything for free. And so basically it was like, if you're going to make a play, it has to be a good play, and it has to be 2-3 good passes. Right. So, and I actually remember, and I use this line now all the time when I'm coaching my kids, I remember in practice, he actually was talking about how if someone's going to make a pass from here and it's going to go over and through 3 people over there, you're just going to tip your hat and say that was a nice play, because the odds are not in their favor. So I think that was his philosophy a lot, was, make them have to make good plays rather than just letting players have time and space. And that was something that we bought into. And then same on the other side, good defense is good offense. So when you're in the offensive zone, it wasn't just throw pucks on net from anywhere. It was hold it, possession. So that way, if they did take it, we had guys to track. You weren't running and gunning per se,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds great.
Right on, Micheal. And obviously, you spent a good amount of time in the New York Islanders organization, spent time in Bridgeport, spent time with the Islanders. So maybe you could just reflect on that and talk about being a part of the New York Islanders franchise.
Yeah, obviously, one night in particular was something I look back on that was pretty amazing. Especially someone like me having that night and having the Coliseum chant your name was pretty cool. But yeah, obviously, when I was on the Islanders, a lot of the team I played with in Bridgeport, it was a young team, and I still have friends from that team, and it was a great group. And I think a lot of guys got their starts, their NHL careers started in the island and then continued on elsewhere. But it was a very young team, so it was a great place to enter the league because everyone was so young and you're familiar, and you can kind of learn with everybody at the same pace. So it was good, and obviously it was exciting for me because we didn't have the good start, and then once I got up and the team, after that Pittsburgh game, we kind of turned the tide a bit and we didn't make playoffs, obviously, but we were a contending team again. Each night we could win. So it was fun to be a part of that and kind of flip the script on the Islanders aren't pushovers anymore. We can, kind of, it's, in my mind anyway, it kind of started then that we made it a game every night. So it was fun.
Yeah, for sure. And just watching it, from the, as a spectator, I mean, just the madness and how wild it was. I mean, obviously it was exciting and just crazy to see, but I mean, what was it like for you to just be in it, just to be involved, like the adrenaline pumping and all that? Like, what was that like for you to all the madness that was going on, the fights, the high scoring, how did you feel in those moments?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, me personally, that's not really that happens quite often. So it wasn't that, I wasn't that new to that feeling of the excitement of fighting and stuff like that. I don't think there was any difference for me. It just kind of came natural. I think after the coolest thing for me was like after I got kicked out and I'm showering and I can still hear them chanting my name. Like that was pretty cool because I think that was my 3rd NHL game ever. So to have a NHL arena chant your name, the Coliseum, like it was pretty fun. And then honestly, more times I just kept reminding people like that was my first NHL goal. So the fights were great, but I get lots of fights. I've never scored an NHL goal before. So that was probably one of the most exciting things for me was that was my first NHL goal. It just kind of got overshadowed by 3 fights.
Micheal, like we said, you spent some time in Bridgeport before that and call up that year and played the rest of that season and had another full year in the organization. You know, it was a very different time in the Islanders organization with Garth Snow as the GM and Jack Capuano, who had coached you in Bridgeport, had just taken over as the Islanders coach. Like you said, did it have that kind of feel of like, you know, kind of a mom and pop feel organization? And did that help you develop through that organization? Because it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't a contending team, but there were a lot of guys who ended up spending a lot of years in the NHL who kind of grew together in that organization at that time.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't know that it was a mom and pop because that was the only team it was the only organization I'd ever been in. I could tell you that when I went from there to the Rangers, that's when I realized that it was more of a mom and pop at that time. Right.
Fair enough.
There was a lot of different things that went on with the Rangers that went on with the Islanders. Obviously, it was a little different back then as far as spending money and, you know, things like that. So I didn't know if it was a mom and pop at the time. I think that, like I said, I think it helped that half the team came from Bridgeport, whether, you know, in the period that I was there. So, like I said, it definitely eases the pressure of like performing and stuff as much when you're with your peers that are, you know, close to the same age. It's just like it was in the minors, and like there's no real expectations of if we win, awesome, but if we don't, you know what I mean? So, and even having Cappy, like I had him in Florida and I had him in Ottawa. You know, I'm close with him, and I was close with him in Bridgeport. Like even having him, that was his first NHL head coaching job too, right? So everyone was kind of going through it together. So it was awesome. I don't know about the free agent, but so I don't think anybody knew any different.
Right on, Micheal. And I don't know how much tabs you're keeping on the current Islanders, but, you know, you look at you talk about the comparison between the Islanders and the Rangers back then, and you fast forward to more recent years now. They finally settled their building situation. They have a brand new building. They're bringing in, you know, players like Matthew Schaefer. They're hiring coaches like Barry Trotz, Patrick Waugh, and now Peter DeBoer. You know, just looking at that contrast, I mean, what does that say for you as an alumnus, seeing the, you know, I guess the upgrade, if you will, and the more recent success they're having now?
Yeah, I think even when I was playing, right, like when I was with the Rangers and then even with the Sharks and stuff, you could see it. And I think it's awesome because, you know, the fan base that we had, like they're pretty loyal. Like it was a great fan base, right? So like there was a lot of reasons for people not to go to the Islanders games back then, and they did. Like it was the people that loved the Islanders, they loved them through and through, right? So it was nice to see kind of for them, you know, as a fan standpoint of, you know, they have some players to cheer for and some contenders, and things are kind of, you know, with the new ownership and such, they're putting out contenders, and, you know, they're not just there, they want to win too. So that was cool to see.
And Micheal, you know, you coached at your old OHL team in Sarnia the last few years. Is there, maybe it was Peter DeBoer, maybe it was somebody else throughout your career, was there any coaching advice you'd gotten from anybody, or things that you remembered as a player throughout your career that you kind of brought to the coaching front too?
Well, I think that you should learn from everybody and take everything from everybody you had, right? And I think the biggest thing, obviously I had some great coaches, but I also, you know, and I'm big on preaching this to all the minor hockey here. Like, I think that you can learn a lot from the times you're not doing well, and maybe situations aren't the best either, right? So we play a sport, and a sport is supposed to teach you adversity and learn how to deal with it and find ways to, you know, overcome it or whatever you need to do. So, but obviously I had some great coaches, especially in the NHL. You know, Pete DeBoer was a huge reason, like I said, that I had the career I had. But I think not only just the coaches, I think you learn from the players too, right? Like the NHL, there's a big, when I got on the Islanders, you had Doug Waite and Bill Guerin, and right. And then you go to San Jose and we got Jumbo and Pavelski and Marlowe. Like, I think everywhere you go, you can learn from everybody. And I'm still a firm believer that there's only one puck, and if you want it, your heart can be better than, you know, a lot of skill. So I think there's a mixture in there.
Right on, Michael. And speaking of the minors and Bridgeport, that's a team that's going to be moving up to Canada. They're moving up to Hamilton. Aside from the geography, now they're going to be playing in a Canadian city in a bigger building. What could that potentially mean for the franchise, as a whole, with their minor league team moving up to a town like Hamilton?
Yeah, I think obviously, again, Bridgeport was like the Islanders too. Like the fans that were there, they were pretty loyal. It's just there wasn't. At least when I was there wasn't a whole lot of them. I think Hamilton's right close to Toronto, so they should be able to at least draw. I think a little more fan base. There's definitely enough people around that area now, and then I think obviously too, like cost of living and things like that. Not that Canada's any cheaper really, but. Yeah, I think it's a good place. I think they'll like it. There's definitely a lot of hockey around this area, so but it also probably make it a lot easier for scouts and stuff because there is so many. But I think they could be excited about it, and I mean it's too bad for Bridgeport. Like I said, I remember my times there, and nothing but fond memories. Too much tabs on them of late, but yeah, I just read the other day actually that they're going to Hamilton. That's pretty cool.
All right, so last one for me, Michael, before we let you go. We touched on Peter DeBoer before, and before you came on, we were talking about the fact that Peter's had so much success in the league, but he just hasn't won the Chalice yet. But, can you just speak to what is it about Peter DeBoer and his coaching style? Now, obviously, he's had some great players play under him, but what is it for a guy like him that's allowed him to get to, a couple of Stanley Cup finals, some conference finals as well? What is it about Peter DeBoer that he's able to bring consistent success to an NHL franchise?
I think, and like I said, this is just my opinion and from the situations and the teams that I had him, I thought, well, first and foremost, now it's just coming from me, so who knows? But I found him to be like really intelligent. So, he's a smart man. He's not. He made a point to talk to you about other things, not just hockey. But at the same time, he commanded respect too, right? Like at no point would you didn't want him to be mad at you either. Like he was able to walk that line of being approachable and separate hockey from the people, cared about you as a person, but then also demand the best out of you and to do your job. So, and then the other thing for me, at least I found, which I appreciated the most, being an undrafted player, I didn't get a whole lot of this, but it was the honesty. I think he was honest. He told you what he wanted, what he expected. And if you did it, he told you did a good job. And if you didn't, he told you that you didn't reach what you were supposed to do. So for me, that was the biggest plus. That's how I am as a person. So that really endeared him to me for that. Like I would much rather you just tell me what I have to do. And if I do it, then great. And so, but I think that his intelligence, and then also, like I said, he's good with people. So I think his best for our team, especially. And, when I look at the teams he's been on, he goes to good teams because he's such a good coach. And I think his best part is that he lets the room be the room. Like he doesn't treat you like you're in junior. It's like you're there to do a job, and he trusts that, like I said, his honesty is he tells you what needs to be done. And, he doesn't need to walk in that room and be the rah guy. And like, it should be coming from within, and he picks good leaders and he has good guys. So, like I can only say, to the team that I had in San Jose that I was on, that's what it was like, right? Like our room was just so tight, and he didn't come in and make it about him. He let that room be the room. So like I said, I think for me, looking back on it now, I think it was just how smart he was not only as a coach, but as a person dealing with other, humans. He was able to know when to push and when to let things be.
Well, Michael, fantastic stuff. Really appreciate your time tonight, and hope to talk to you again in the future. Have a great rest of your night.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Hales.
All right. That was Michael Haley, former New York Islander. Great stuff from him. Arthur, what'd you think, man?
Love that guy. I always got a lot of time for him. When you cover teams like that, with kind of a team that doesn't have a lot of expectations, you can get to know the people on the team, and especially a guy who undrafted free agent, paid his dues in the AHL. When you're an AHL enforcer, you are a guy that's a selfless person. And so it's always great to see guys like that succeed and get up to the next level. And honestly, the way he talks about Peter DeBoer, he is right. You know, he went from the Islanders where he played sparingly, went to the Rangers a little bit in that shortened year, and then ended up in the San Jose organization. They changed coaches, and Peter DeBoer saw something in him, played pretty much that
70 plus games.
I mean,
78 or something.
That's where he really showed that he was an NHL player. And again, the connection he had with Jack Capuano, he goes to Florida where Jack was with Bob Bugner, who's also still with the Islanders and is probably going to be DeBoer's right-hand man going forward. So it's nice to see a guy like that succeed and end up, you know, when you saw him at training camp or in rookie camp, you'd say like, I don't know about this guy. And then 300 games and coaching in the OHL the last few years, it's great to see. And he's a good dude.
Outstanding stuff. So that will do it for our first edition of On the Line, presented by Razor, Kniff, and Lonstein tonight. And now we move on for a little What's on Tap via the Snake Den.
Welcome to the Snake Den with Jake the Snake Redanis.
That's right, folks. We're bringing in Jake for a little What's on Tap. Jake the Snake, how we doing, brother?
Doing good. I'll tell you, a lot's changed with the Islanders since the last time I was sitting here.
Yeah, a lot going on, and some of it good, some of it bad. Where do you stand, pal?
It doesn't look great. It does not look great, but I guess that's what we're here to discuss, right?
Yes, indeed. So what do you have for us tonight, sir?
Well, I guess just starting off, just this whole year, the Eastern Conference and the parity in it, it felt like when one team won, every team won. When one team lost, every team lost.
Yes.
That could only go on for so long, right? Well, we saw that.
Unfortunately, now it's one team losing and everybody else winning.
Exactly
we'll
that.
move on from that.
And it happened, you know, at the worst time of the season for the Islanders, losing 4 straight, losing 7 of their last 10. We see Patrick Waugh get fired, Pete DeBoer come in. See what happens there. Never say never. The Isles are not dead, but they don't control their own destiny. They haven't. Last night was a real, felt like a real nail. Not in the coffin, but if it isn't all the way in, it's just about there.
Yeah, they're lining it up.
They definitely are. So I figured we'd talk about what's going on there. So the Islanders pretty much have to win out here. And they also need 2 scorching hot teams in Philadelphia and Ottawa to cool off.
Sounds great.
Yeah, you know, not too much to ask, right? And you got to keep an eye at the same time on the Blue Jackets and Detroit because, hey, if those 2 teams cool off, what happens if they heat up?
Right, yeah, it's a problem.
So with Philly, they're at 92 points, which is 3 points ahead of the Isles. They still play the Red Wings, the Jets, the Canes, and the Habs. The Islanders do have the tiebreaker on them, so there's our first positive sign that we're going to talk about here.
All right.
And then you have Ottawa, also has 92 points. They play the Panthers, the Islanders, the Devils, and the Leafs, but the Islanders do not have the tiebreaker, and they're not really close to even having anything if they tied them up in regulation wins they can't. So and then Columbus 90 points. The Islanders have the tiebreaker by a game and they're up big on the second tiebreaker. Detroit 89 points. The Wings have the tiebreaker by a game. They're actually much more neck and neck, but I really think if the Islanders have any shot to get into the dance, it's going to probably be that 3rd spot in the Metro. But you're asking, like we talked about, a scorching hot team, and they'd have to lose a lot.
It's been known to happen.
Yeah,
it has.
You know,
it has.
You never say never. So if the Islanders do win out, the worst that Philly can go is 2-1-1, and that would be for the Islanders to get in over them.
That's not an unreasonable record for the Flyers to get. Yeah,
exactly.
Not at all.
And then the Senators, they would have to go 2-2 or worse. So that's with the Islanders winning out. The Islanders lose 1 game in OT. They need the Flyers to lose at least 2 games in regulation, and the Sens can't win more than 1 game with at least 2 of those losses being in regulation. If they lose a game in regulation, the Flyers can't win more than 1 game, and the Senators would get in by winning 1 game and losing once in OT. So they're, you know, it's
So you're telling me there's a chance?
There's a chance.
Where we are. Yeah.
So if they come out and they lose tomorrow night, you know, things get a little more tougher than they already are.
Yeah.
And this is all barring what Columbus and Detroit do.
Right.
So
thanks for bringing all the positivity.
Yeah. You know, so just remember,
bleak edition.
The
of
most
Snake Den,
important thing of what I said there is that the Islanders do have the tiebreaker on Philly.
Hey.
So if Philly starts to lose out and Columbus doesn't go get hot too, and the Islanders win out under the Pete DeBoer effect, the new coach effect, hey, there's a chance.
There's a chance. There's a chance.
I'm with you. I agree that's the real. I mean, I feel like they obviously have to beat Ottawa in regulation no matter what.
Yes.
But that schedule that Ottawa's got left, oof. And they've earned it. They've beaten some good teams lately. But yeah, it's Philly. It's Philly or bust where I sit. So
I agree with you, and I'm calling this collection of games remaining for the Islanders the DeBoer 4.
I like it
because they rhyme, right?
They do, yeah.
But like, you know, I just at the very least, like just give us something to watch. Right?
Sure.
Like win one game at a time, keep us invested, give us that, even if it's false, that little shimmer of hope, right? To say, okay, they won, they banked another 2 points. We got to see what the other teams do, but let's see if they can do it right. Because I mean, it would be kind of comedy, right? Like after making this coaching change, and there's like, you know, a little bit of renewed excitement, even realistic in the sense that this is going to be tough, but like, okay, they got the new coach, maybe they get the new coach bump, and like, it would kind of be hilarious if tomorrow night comes and they just lose to Toronto. It's just over right off the bat. I mean, yeah. I don't want that.
I was going to say,
but it would be funny.
How dare you laugh at that scenario?
It's a valid
because you know I see the comedy and chaos too.
Okay,
you know?
It's a valid point, especially with just how hectic the East has been this whole year.
Right.
Well, you know the funny part. Sorry to cut you.
Yeah,
off,
no,
Jay,
go
but
for
I feel
it.
like I think what has shown these last few weeks with Detroit stumbling and Philly, which, you know, that's not a very complete team. They're just on a good heater, and Columbus really cooling off. Ottawa, who to my mind should be sitting up where Montreal and Buffalo are. They're a really talented team. These are teams that are putting up gaudy points numbers. I don't know that any of them are really that good. I feel, and I still feel like if the Islanders were able to get in somehow, if everything breaks the right way, they can beat Pittsburgh. They can beat Carolina. Like this is a season you want to be in the playoffs. And I feel like you look at a Washington or even a New Jersey, a couple more points. And we were talking about like how, you know, the sliding doors effect, if they don't let in that late goal to Ottawa, where they could be sitting, obviously might not have the coaching change.
Right.
But you feel like just like every year you say just get in, and it kind of doesn't mean anything. When the last couple times they've been in, and it's really been a mismatch with Carolina, but just get in, man. Like this is wide open as you could ever think it's been in the East, and it's so frustrating to think that they might miss out by a point or two because of this bad week or these bad couple weeks.
Well, I think the second bit of comedy is I think they're almost destined, right? If they do get in, that they'll play Carolina in the first round, right? And I know, and like a couple weeks ago, we were joking about like where the position. We were feeling good, like okay, they're probably a 2 or 3 team, right? Like they're going to play.
Never going to play Carolina.
They're going to play Pittsburgh or Columbus. Now here we are, where that might be the most likely outcome, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the draw that you hate to see the most as an Islander fan.
Yeah.
So
especially after the last game.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's.
I mean, if that's any indication,
I can't watch anymore.
Good Lord.
I mean, the last game against Pittsburgh was no great shakes either. But,
True.
But at least you know you can match up with them.
Right.
So they're up against it. They can feel sorry for themselves, even though they probably do. 4 games ahead, you're DeBoer 4.
Yes.
We'll see what they could do there. Hopefully, there's some miracle out there waiting for us. I believe it was 2007. I just saw the clip today of Dubin what's his name?
Dubiel.
Oh, Wade Dubowitz, yes.
With the poke check to get them in, and wasn't that
Amazing.
some sort of miracle for them to even get in that
on
year?
Easter Sunday as well?
That was full heart attack nonsense there. That taking the lead, John Madden with the jam goal with like 2 seconds left in regulation.
Was it Madden? I thought it was Gomez.
I think Madden had both of them in that game.
Oh, okay.
I'm not completely sure. I think it was Madden.
Okay.
With that goal mouth scramble late. I mean, it was just the rise and fall of that whole week was insane. And then that era you get in and you're just like,
and
it was facing a juggernaut Sabres team too.
Yeah. And it was eerily similar because there were like 2 or 3 other teams that were in Toronto, I think Boston, whoever else it was. It was at least Toronto and like maybe Montreal and one other team. Yeah.
It was wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, the important thing is to never say never. They're not
That's
dead.
right.
There you go.
Why don't we talk about the teams that they have to play
Real quick
in order to do this? So they start off tomorrow at 6:45 p.m. That's a weird time for a puck drop, but that's against the Leafs, a struggling team. They're missing their best player in Austin Matthews, but a team that's in a lost year that I could personally see enjoying to play spoiler against some teams, especially with history.
How about you just give up? How about you just give up?
The history they have with the Islanders, and they also get a chance to do that against the Senators down the line. They still have Nylander, Tavares, Nyes, so that's their first matchup tomorrow. All the other teams are playing too, so
Yes, we will be scoreboard watching.
Yes.
Yes.
And then on Saturday, they play the Senators at 1 p.m., who are red hot right now, looking to make the playoffs for their second year in a row under Islanders alumni, Travis Green. Obviously, you have Tkachuk and Stützle over there putting up big years, but I think for that team, the Senators, you talk about the goaltending, the lack of it. If they had maybe had a little bit better, they'd probably be up with those other teams. But you get those underrated players like Batherson, Cousins, and Sanderson you got to watch out for, and these guys can outscore their problems. So 2 tough matchups, even with the Leafs having the bad year they do. You got to win them all.
Yes.
You got to win them all.
Yes, you do. And we will be back for a pregame show on Sunday back at Bagel Boss before the Montreal Canadiens game. That is a 1 p.m. pregame showtime. And hopefully we're not already writing the eulogy. Hopefully we are getting ready for a game that means something on Sunday. But one game at a time. And despite the heater that Ottawa is on, Toronto and Ottawa are both beatable teams for the Islanders.
They've done it before this season with both of them, so let's see it again.
And they're at home. Not that that's made much difference lately, but they are at home.
They are at home.
Yes. So the DeBoer 4, it gets more difficult as you go on, right? You go from Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, and then of course,
well, Carolina will have nothing to play for in that last game, so hopefully
they may not need to.
Okay.
I think they're still going to be tough.
All right.
It's still going to be a tough game.
I'm a Mets fan, so look at last year what happened to them. The Marlins had nothing to play for and kept them out of the playoffs. So
yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, like Phil, you know what? Here's the difference between, it's unfortunate that the Islanders were the one team here that had to fade out. But you look at the other team, particularly Philadelphia and Ottawa, they're just two teams that seize the moment here.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it so much more disappointing for the Islanders. Like, they're not a rookie squad. They got guys that have gone deep into the playoffs. They brought in a couple of Stanley Cup winners at the deadline. I mean, they knew the task at hand. And sure, they were missing Tony DeAngelo. Was he the one reason? And even Pulock for a short time? Were they the reason why they couldn't pull out some points here? Probably not. But, like, it's not even just that they lost. It is the way that they lost. So uninspiring. And just like, what happened to these guys? Because we talked about how resilient they were all season long. Games that they were down and out, they would come back. Ton of comeback wins this season. And just throw up these absolute stinkers against important teams like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, and then whomever's in between just to make up for those points. Like, what the hell happened to these guys?
Yeah, it was hard to watch, and it feels like you hit that wall and it just sort of snowballs after that, especially after the Pittsburgh game where Sorokin and the rest of the team fell apart. The one breakdown in the Buffalo game negates what had been a decent performance and a decent comeback, and then just kind of I think you just hit that mental wall a little bit, and it's not to make an excuse, it's just sort of an explanation of how you can have two such crucial games like that where you don't show up.
Yeah, bad news all around, but hopefully there's some good news to come. Jake, great job with the Snake Den tonight, but we got a break for Josh Bailey. So we will be right back after this break. We'll be talking to former New York Islander great Josh Bailey.
When in need of representation, it's not always easy to know where to turn. But whether you've been accused of a crime or need to go to court, Razor, Kniff & Lonstein, attorneys at law, have you covered with over 100 years of combined experience. With offices in Manhattan, Mineola, and Suffolk, Razor, Kniff & Lonstein is an award-winning law firm specializing in criminal defense with additional expertise in business debt settlement, trust and estates, personal injury, and more. At Razor, Kniff & Lonstein, you'll have direct access to your attorney 24/7. Because more attentive service translates to better outcomes. You deserve legal representatives with national recognition and a strong track record of delivering results. And Razor, Kniff & Lonstein are ready to fight for you. Call 212-LAW-1500 or go to razorandkniff.com to schedule a free, no-risk consultation today. That's RAISERANDKENNIFF.com. Razor, Kniff & Lonstein. We win cases because we make your problems our problems. Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest. And Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook. Or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Hope you enjoyed the ads. Now let's get back to Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, folks. Let's get back to Hockey Night in New York. It is once again time for On the Line, presented by Razor, Kniff, and Launstein. And joining us right now, New York Islanders, great Mr. Josh Bailey. Josh, pleasure to have you on the show. You're talking to Sean and Arthur. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. So, Josh, let's start by just talking about the career you had with the New York Islanders. 15 seasons with the franchise, 1,057 games. The fans dedicate a song to serenade you with night in, night out. What is the first thing that you think about when you reflect on your career with the New York Islanders?
Oh, I don't know what the first thing would be. Just a ton of great memories, I suppose. I was very fortunate to spend my whole career here, and I think a lot of it has to do with timing along the way, but so many good people and just a lot of great relationships. My family and I call it home now for that reason as well. Just again, just a lot of good years here. Kids are all born here. My wife loves it here as well, and a ton of great memories.
Josh, the transition to doing some media stuff, being on our side of the ledger this year, what's that been like for you? And you have some company with Cal Clutterbuck and Thomas Hickey, guys that you played with a long time, who are kind of made that switch in the last couple of years. What do you guys talk about now that you're, it's not just usual retired guy stuff. You're around the team. You were teammates with a lot of these guys. What has that been like for you?
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, it was never on my radar, to be honest with you. I think you know me enough, Stape. It was not something I ever even considered. Cal and I got talking last year after watching the Manning cast, and we were like, "Oh, that'd be fun. Like we could do something like that, maybe." And so it got agreed upon. And then right before the season, they had some turnover with the radio, and they're like, "Do you mind doing some games to get a little more polished?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" I just thought it would be fun. And it has been. Alan does a great job and makes my role extremely easy. I just get to go in and watch hockey games and talk hockey, which is obviously something I enjoy and very familiar with. But outside of that, it was like I said, it was never something on my radar. But even a night like tonight, Cal and I were at dinner with our families, and we were talking about the team and catching up on little things here and there. So the Islanders are just a part of who we are at this point. And now with it being my third year being done, it's been pretty easy to just cheer for them and want them to do well.
Right on, Josh. And, you were kind of part of almost like a playoff resurgence for this team, kind of a crescendo, if you will. You start with that Pittsburgh series. That was a lot of fun to watch. You fall short there with a young team in that shortened season. You have the 7-game series against the Caps. You came super close to breaking through there. And you move on. You finally break through against Florida. And then you get to the semifinals under Barry Trotz, in the COVID years. And you get so close. Did it feel like you guys were building towards something special? Because just watching it from a fan's perspective, I mean, and especially coming from some dark times prior, it was so much fun to watch you guys, and you scored some huge goals. And just like, how did that all feel, kind of building up towards that and getting so close to getting to a Stanley Cup final?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly takes time. I think we look back to the first year you mentioned playing Pittsburgh, and it'd been a couple of years that a bunch of us were a part of, as you referred to, dark times. It was, it wasn't easy. We were starting young and really working our way up. And you have to get to that point of believing and really feeling like you belong and that you're in that mix of teams. And then when you get there, then you got to take the next step and win in a playoff round, and that can be challenging. And but again, a lot of us did it together for a long time, and obviously we have some turnover over the years. But then you hit a point where you've been to the playoffs a couple of times, at least for my experience, and that belief starts when you get over that hump, you get over that hurdle, and then we go back to it another time later, and a couple years later that is, and you've been there, you've experienced it, and then the belief just grows and grows from there. So it definitely takes time over the years, especially in our situation. Some teams it happens quicker, so you never know. But it's playing in the playoffs is the first thing I think of when I think of my time with the Islanders, other than what I mentioned before, just great memories in the grand scheme of things. But playoffs to me is where is the most fun you can have as a hockey player. So I'll be looking forward to watching the playoffs here in the next week or two.
Talking to guys, Bales, over the years, that shortened season in 2013, that playoffs, as loud as it was at the Coliseum, I think a lot of guys who played in that game, a lot of guys who played for the Penguins in that series said that was the loudest building they've ever been in. The pent-up excitement that the fans had for being in the playoffs for the first time in a long time. And then you score the overtime winner in 2019 to kind of kick off that playoff series, another incredible crowd pop. When you think about those moments at the Coliseum and the fans, and even in Brooklyn in 16 when John Tavares scores the OT winner against Florida to get your first playoff series win, is that the kind of thing that sort of you think of the most when you think of Islander fans, is going as insanely loud and crazy as they have over the years?
Yeah, and I've heard, like you mentioned with Pittsburgh, I've heard from a few teams that building coming in the playoffs, it was hostile, right? I mean, we could feel it in the dressing room. Leading into those games, it felt like it was shaking, and then as you move on further in the series, then you move on to the next round, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And again, just so many good memories from those times. Those are certainly the top of my list. I think that first go around, I remember playing. You get your first taste of playoff hockey, and I remember you play at home, and you're like, oh man, it'd be nice to score a big one in this kind of atmosphere. And we had a good run that first year. I think we lost in overtime in 6 against Pitt. I think that year they might have had more money on their first power play unit than we did on our entire roster. But they had a wagon of a team. They were really good, and we hung in there as long as we could. And then we go to Washington after that and get there to 7, and then finally get over the hump. But yeah, then obviously scoring that's the favorite goal of my career. I've said this on many different occasions, but scoring an OT at the Coliseum, at an incredible moment. And then I think another one first one comes to mind is Bo getting the big one in Game 6. Just complete mayhem after that.
Yeah, Josh, both of those moments were definitely amazing. So you entered the league as a teenager, and now the New York Islanders have another teenager entering the year, a very young teenager entering the team here, entering the league here. And maybe you can just speak on, what Matthew Schaefer is doing as a teenager, not only on the ice, but off the ice too. Everybody speaks, so glowingly about him, just as an individual outside of what he's accomplishing on the ice. So yeah, what are your thoughts on Matthew Schaefer joining this Islander team and really, providing a jolt for this franchise?
Yeah, he sure has, right? I mean, we all, anyone that gets to watch them play, it's pretty special what he's able to do out there and at such a young age. And you can see it. You watch young guys throughout the years. If you're a good player, the veterans are going to give you the puck. So if you're that good, and you can see guys look to him now, and for good reason. There's really, I think, so many different facets of his game can impress you. Obviously, the speed comes to mind first, but just the smarts, the awareness, the way he defends. He truly is just a number one all situations type of guy. And as an 18-year-old, it's incredible to watch. And his ceiling is so high, and I'm sure we'll all get to see it one day. But and then as a person, I've got to know him throughout the course of the year. Just a stand-up guy and mature beyond his years. So I think we're all very lucky to have him be an Islander.
Bales, the news of the week obviously is Peter DeBoer coming in and taking over. Not ideal circumstances, but a guy who's got a real pedigree as an NHL coach. Especially a guy in his first year with a lot of teams taking them to Cup finals, to conference finals. You were part of the team, obviously, in 2018 when Lou Lamoriello first came in, and then Barry Trotz comes in. It seems there's some parallels there. What was the feeling like? That was a very newsworthy summer, I imagine, if you were an Islander, not just Garth Snow and Doug Wade out and Lou in and Barry Trotz in, and then Johnny leaves soon after that. What do you remember about Barry coming in, and what was that first conversation or first meeting like where you knew what Barry was all about?
Both him and Lou, I mean, it was very positive. I think that, their track records obviously spoke for themselves, guys that you respect immediately. And then we go through a good training camp and we started winning games, right? So it became extremely easy to buy in. And they're just good people, they're stand-up people you want to play for and work for. And the parallels in this situation, I think, I know Pete a little bit, and he seems like an awesome guy, different coming in with 4 games left, but, you hope it gives them a jolt. But then again, it's 4 games left. So we'll see. It's crunch time now, and they're obviously in a situation they'd probably hope not to be in, obviously. But all you can do is handle what's in front of you, and I'm sure they're going to be ready to do that tomorrow.
And Josh, I mean, over the course of your career with the Islanders, you played for a good handful of coaches, and and some guys in the league they get it right away, right? They come out and they're putting up points right away. Other guys go up and down through the system, and other guys just take some more time to kind of find their grounding, right? I know that a lot of people like to credit Barry Trotz with kind of Brock Nelson breaking open when he came in. That's when he kind of worked his way up towards being a solid top six forward. And I'm curious, like, in your career, was there ever like a defining moment for you, or maybe just a lesson, or maybe even just some coach's advice that you got over the course of your career that helps you kind of maybe reach another level of your game, or make you feel more comfortable, more confident, whatever the case may be, while you're with the Islanders?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's one thing in particular. I think you're constantly picking things up, and not only just from your coaches, but the guys around you. I think if you're listening and watching and paying attention, you're constantly learning things on the ice, little things you can do in certain situations, and then you're being put in those situations. So then, how do you learn from it? It's just all part of the growth of your game. And I think I can think for myself, and even Brock for that matter. I think a lot of it comes down to opportunity as well, right? There's only so many pieces of the pie to go around. That year you touched on him, Johnny just left. So there's your opportunity, right? And he took it and ran with it. And he's still running with it. And, I'm a huge Brock fan, and playing next to him on a line with him, I feel like he's been underpaid his entire career. He's that good of a player. And then, for me, it was a similar situation where, we had a couple guys leave, and there was some turnover, and I was like, okay, this is my shot to try and run with it. And, things worked out. So it's learning throughout as you go, and the situations you're put in, I think are probably the biggest things. And when you get that opportunity, taking advantage of it.
Bales, you came into this organization, like we said, as a teenager, looked very different as an organization. The building you played in, the organization you were a part of, to the organization that you retired with, a few years ago, and are still around and be a part of, with a brand new building, state-of-the-art practice facility. Just kind of describe that transformation from when you came into the organization to the end of your career and to now, and kind of what it says about, the Islanders' stature in the league, that Scott Malkin and his ownership group now have kind of made this kind of commitment. And even with Peter DeBoer coming in too, an in-demand coach who wants to be a part of this, it feels a long way from the team you were a part of a long time ago, doesn't it?
Yeah, times have changed for sure. That being said, I've always thought this is a great place to play. You hear guys' opinions as they come in, and then guys that come to the team after, they're, you stay at the Marriott, you're next to the Coliseum, there's not much going on. They were always joking that was a room service and movie night. And then when you really see what Long Island has to offer, I think guys change their opinions pretty quick. But as far as the growth of the organization, I think obviously, we get UBS now. It's an incredible arena. Scott and John and the whole crew have done an incredible job, and really helped elevate the organization. I think in previous years, Gar Snow, Charles Wong helped bring us along too, and really kind of put a core group in place. And and then you get through the Lou era and Barry, and I really just think that it's all trending in the right direction. And I'm happy for our fan base too. They deserve this, and that arena. Even though still I got a lot of people come up, I don't know, I miss the Collie, and I think we always, the Collie will always have a place in my heart for sure too, and I think with all our fans. But it's tough to deny UBS Arena, and I think the direction in which the team is headed.
And Josh, one of the things about the teams that you've been on, during your career with the Islanders, you always hear about what a great group of guys that it is, right? And I always appreciated and admired that. And you'd hear it all the time, up, down, left, and right. In fact, Pete DeBoer was just quoted as saying that Patrick Waugh said to him, "Hey, you got a great group of guys that you're taking on here." And you talk about the camaraderie with Hickey and Clutterbuck, and I'm sure you keep in touch with a lot of the guys still, right? And I'd love to just hear, about that, and like what brought you guys together to be such a close-knit team. And you can see it on the ice, and you can see you guys having a blast out there. I mean, you can't take the smile off of Casey Cizikas' face, right? And that's always just been a fun part of it for me, win or lose, to just watch you guys be such a tight-knit team and watch you guys kind of grow together and enjoy, those runs that you went on. And it just seemed like there was such a tight bond there, if you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right. It's an incredibly close group, and there's been there's been core groups kind of form in and out throughout the years, right? It's like when I started, there was a number of guys there, and then it kind of carries over to the next group, and you're able to just play together for a long time. So you can't help but develop these, relationships that are going to last a lifetime. You get to know each other so well. You spend so much time with one another. And then, you inject some youth in there, and then that kind of generation becomes a part of it. Then you add guys through trades, signings in the summer. And I think with Garth and Lou especially, and as well as Darcy this past season, they're adding quality people. So you're bringing in the right kind of guys that mesh well together, that just seem to work. And then you already have your I lost my train of thought, but you already have your culture in place. That guys have kind of built slowly over time, and the new guys come in and then they're a part of it. And it's just fun. And I think even from a fan base perspective, you see some teams, like I'm a fan of other sports as well. And when there's a lot of turnover, I find myself, you want guys that that you can root for. Of course, you're going to have the new guys, but I feel like over the years here, there's been a core that's really stuck together, and the new people have been great and given our fan base a lot to cheer for.
Bales, last one for me, and I just want to say thanks again. I've been pestering you pretty much all season to try to get you on the show, so you're probably happy that you're finally doing it, so now I'll leave you alone. But, Anders Lee was your teammate for a long, long time. He's been captain as long as anybody in this organization, and I know he's coming up on possibly being an unrestricted free agent. He was named captain pretty soon after Barry took over, and seemed like that was a very important phase for the team, kind of just as him stepping into that role. What has he meant to this team and being his teammate for a lot of years? What have you seen from him, just his consistency as a person on and off the ice that's really helped this team going forward?
He's been great, honestly. He's a great leader first and foremost, but he's just a good person. It's I think with him, he's the same guy as I know before captain as he was after, so and nothing changed. He was always, obviously as you get a little more older and more mature, I'm sure it changes a little, but he's still the same person at heart, comes from a good family, and just a guy that you always wanted to root for, and a guy I loved playing with. We had history playing on the same line for a number of years, and loved being on his line, and just a really easy guy to cheer for. So we'll see what happens, but he's been an incredible leader for this team for a long time, and I think we've all benefited from that.
Well, Josh, a total pleasure having you on the show tonight. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And hope you enjoy the rest of the season. Hope you enjoy the playoffs, and hope you enjoy the rest of your night.
Same to you guys. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. That was the great Josh Bailey, former New York Islander, giving us some great stuff there, Arthur.
Yeah, we got the Hales and Bales show. We could have asked him about fight night, too. I think that was his first NHL fight when he dropped the
oh, my God.
In that game. But
yes.
Josh Bailey, 1,000 games, one of the few Islanders to ever do it. It's, it's always funny to talk to him now because I can remember any milestone he hit when I was covering the team. He'd say like, yeah, Stape, I'm not talking about that now. Like when I'm retired, we can talk about it. So we got him here.
Yes.
He's retired. He talked about it all. He was super uncomfortable doing all of it, I'm sure. So I can chirp him about it later. But yeah, one of my fondest memories, sitting in an airport somewhere around the country covering the team, and I'd run into his folks and his brother. They were always going around watching him play, coming down to visit, grandparents coming to be with the kids. It's an incredible family, dedicated to hockey, dedicated to his career, but he's always so humble about it. So love talking to him, always have time for him.
Great stuff. Love it. All right, folks. So once again, that will do it for On the Line, presented by Razor, Kniff, and Lonstein. And now I'm going to tell you all about Isles Fix. That's right, Islanders Country. Get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at ilesfix.substack.com. And now it is time for Questions Brewing.
It's time for Questions Brewing. So go ahead, ask us a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right, folks. It's time to bring Edzo into the mix. Eddie, how are you doing, pal?
I'm good. I'm good. I just want to know what Arthur's anthem is.
Yeah, let's hear it. What do we got here?
That's question number one.
It's a jam-packed show.
That's right.
Well, it's hard to find a track to really encapsulate that wacky week that we just had. But I'm going to go with the Menzingers, great band, and a track from a couple years ago called Hope is a Dangerous Little Thing.
Sure is.
Because we had a lot of hope when the season got underway, and now it is gone. Almost completely dead. Jake gave you all the scenarios, but hanging by a thread. And obviously the Peter DeBoer change brings a little hope to go forward.
Yeah, for the future.
I felt a lot of pushback online about can they become the team that Peter DeBoer wants to coach. My feeling is yes. I think it's going to be a very busy offseason for Matthew Darsh. I think you hire a guy like Peter DeBoer, you have set yourself a certain high standard. So let's get the hope back in it, as dangerous as it is. And thank you to the Menzingers. Great track.
Yeah, and before we dive in, just to touch on that, parallel that you made earlier, with the Lou Trotz year, right? I mean, that season was supposed to be an evaluation season.
Sure was.
The expectations were low. Nobody thought that team was going anywhere. And then, of course, we saw what happened next. So who's to say Pete DeBoer can't get it going for these guys?
A really good established coach can make a huge difference. I understand that coaching is kind of fallen by the wayside in the NHL, but we are really in the golden age of these kinds of coaches. You see it, and I don't want to mention that other team, but Peter Laviolette came into the Rangers a couple of years ago. Boom.
Hey, he did it with the Isles too.
President's Trophy, he helped turn them around. And you see what Peter DeBoer's track record is. Bruce Cassidy's done it. He's another guy who was out there. I think you can't pass those opportunities by. And I understand the money is the money, and if an owner doesn't want to commit to it, we've seen that scenario a lot of times in Islanders history, but I think we are out of that phase. Scott Malkin has shown that he is willing to commit. He's committed in a big way. He's paying 2 coaches right now, big money.
Yeah.
And I think even if these 4 games don't produce the result this season that we want, that going forward into next season, there is a lot of excitement for me. There is a lot of anticipation about what's going to come this summer. I feel like a lot of the attention of the league is going to be focused on the New York Islanders.
Let's have it.
Really hasn't happened. So it's a challenge for Matthew Darsh to do what he needs to do. I think he tried pretty hard to make some big trades before the deadline. Didn't end up with the guys that maybe anybody wanted to see the team get younger.
Yeah.
But I think we're, in addition to some possible guys coming in, I think we're going to see some mainstays go out. I think there's going to be some real change with this organization. So it's going to be interesting to watch.
Well, Ed, what do you got for us, bud?
Yeah, well, my anthem for the record is "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." I think that takes the cake here.
Nice job, buddy.
But,
wow.
In any case, real quick before we dive into questions, just giving the answer away to Jake's trivia question. Josh Bailey's only career hat trick was against the Blue Jackets, and Bobrovsky was in goal.
Oh, okay.
So how about that? We're going to start off with P.S. and some other letters. Isn't it interesting that DeBoer said he watched the Carolina game, quote, front to back? Darch knew they were losing that game.
I mean, listen, when Matthew Darsh says, I contacted Peter DeBoer on Saturday night, I think, I'm not trying to give anything away. There's no such thing as tampering when it's your own guy and a free agent coach. But these are not conversations that come out of nowhere. I think if you are laying the groundwork to hire a guy, you're not doing it in 12 hours. In the middle of a season. That's especially when it's a long-term deal for a lot of money. There's obviously going to be some back and forth. You're not just bringing out the Publishers Clearinghouse check and saying, just sign here, Pete, and whatever you want, we'll give it to you. So there was certainly some back channel conversations going on. Having said that, I think Peter DeBoer is a smart guy, like Michael Haley pointed out. And if he understands that a team is losing and there's a potential for some change, and maybe even whether he has an agent or someone that's been in contact with someone in the Islanders front office saying like, hey, heads up, there might be a call coming here. He knows to keep an eye on the team. So that's the way I'll explain that. Sometimes you have to read between the lines and you can't just come right out and say, and it would be disrespectful to Patrick Waugh to have him be coaching a game while they're negotiating for his replacement. That's not the way you want to do business, to establish yourself to other people in the league. So yeah, I think when he says that, there's no like, gotcha, like, haha, they knew he was coming. Like, yeah, we knew. It's contracts take a lot of negotiation, a lot of back and forth.
Well, it's similar to July 1st, right? Where as soon as the deadline comes, all of a sudden, guys are just signing.
1201, they've got this ridiculous deal with like 28 different clauses in it.
Right.
Like, no, they've been working on it.
Yeah.
Thomas Boyle, not a happy
TB.
man tonight. TB. But a very reasonable question. He just asks, any update with Shen?
As far as?
I don't know. Was he hurt? I have no idea.
I think he took a shot off his foot in practice, but he
Okay.
came back to finish the practice from what I gathered. So
Okay.
So I'm guessing he's all right.
I assume he'll be fine.
Wow.
He's a
I'm
warrior.
surprised.
I don't think he's missing.
No fire and
He said he
brimstone
has a
from,
controversial one, but I don't think I've seen it. But I'll look for it.
Okay, fair enough. What do you have next?
Chris from Long Island. He says, Arthur, does DeBoer have a reputation for burning out his players after a period of time? If so, do you think this time away this year he might tweak that? Chris from Hicksville.
Well, Chris, my answer is yes, because that's every coach. The average length of time that a coach serves in a job is less than 3 years. So
Right on the nose for Patrick. Wow.
if you are an NHL coach, and I understand that with guys like Laviolette, I understand that with guys like Cassidy, the players do get tired of them. I think players get tired of every coach. They get tired of hearing that voice. The Islanders players got tired of Barry Trotz. I never get tired of talking to Barry Trotz. He's the best.
He's the best.
But the message gets stale after a while. It's just the way that this league works right now. And I understand that, like, Rod Brindamore has been in his job a long time. John Cooper's been in his job a long time. I'm sure there's players who played for both those guys who hate those guys' guts.
Probably.
It's just the way the world works. It's the way the NHL works. So, yes, the Islanders will get tired of Peter DeBoer in a couple of years. Maybe they'll have a Stanley Cup between now and then, and it'll make it all okay. Even a trip to the finals would be okay.
I'd enjoy that.
Yeah, the message has to get across somehow, and you don't have a lot of time to do it. And I think the guys that do it well understand that they've got a 2 to 3 year window to do it. Otherwise, it's never going to work.
I'm going to combine Magician Matt and Craig, regular human bartender's question. They're kind of leaning towards the same thing. I'm going to start with Magician Matt. He says, how much influence do you think the old man had in bringing in DeBoer? Malkin brought in Waugh under the old man's nose. I think it was calculated. Your thoughts? And Craig said, is there a correlation between Waugh keeping the team in the playoff spot for 85% of the year and then falling off a cliff after Darsh's acquisitions? Did Lou Lamoriello get DeBoer here?
I mean, I would say there's certainly some input. Like, Lou hired Peter DeBoer in Jersey, so they know each other. And Peter, I think, hinted that the people that he knows in the Islander organization he talked to before he accepted. And I imagine that Lou Lamoriello was one of those people. Like, why
I would imagine that as well.
Why wouldn't you talk to someone who's been part of the organization for a long time?
Yeah.
I don't really understand the first question, because the owner didn't hire Patrick Waugh with, like, Lou Lamoriello went out and got Patrick Waugh. That had nothing to do with Scott Malkin.
That's actually a good point.
That's a curious one. But you know, I don't think Lou has an influence with Matthew Darsh right now. I don't know if he has an influence. He is an advisor to Scott Malkin. I don't know what sort of influence he has with Scott Malkin. I don't know if it's Lou says something, whispers something in Scott Malkin's ear, and Scott Malkin goes to Matthew Darsh and says, hey, how about this?
Right.
I don't think it's like that. But I think Matthew Darsh, you know, he comes from Tampa, where they haven't had to change coaches at all in the last, 13 years with John Cooper?
Right.
Very lucky.
Right.
But Julien Brisebois is an aggressive guy. When they want to keep their championship windows open, they will trade any draft pick, any prospect to get guys in. They are very aggressive about cycling guys in and saying, we made a decision, we're going to win, this is what we're going to do. I think Matthew Darsh looked at this team. He's spent the year evaluating it. He says, we're not going to be a patient retool, rebuild, whatever you want to call it, because we have Matthew Schaefer, young and cheap right now. We have Ilya Sorokin playing at a high level. And I think he understands there's some moves he needs to make that you can't make during the season, whether it's buying out Scott Mayfield, let's say, or trading one of Adam Pelech or Ryan Pulock. You're not making those moves in the middle of the season. Even maybe if they're going to consider trading Matthew Barzal to shake up the forward group, which is a topic we can discuss at another time when the season's over.
Yes.
So he's looking at this group, I think, and saying, our timeline has moved up. We're better than we thought we were going to be this season. And this is not the coach who's going to take us to where we need to be now that we're 2 steps up the ladder.
Right.
Now we've got a coach who wants to probably be 4 or 5 steps up that ladder, closer to the top step. Now you have to bring in a roster. And Peter DeBoer knows everybody in the league because he's coached in it for the last 20 years. So he can be a part of what you're going to build. It's not going to be an NFL style thing where the coach dictates the roster like they do in football. But I think Peter DeBoer might have a pretty big say now in how this team is going to look next season, because he's certainly going to have a big say in how they play. So I feel like this is a step that Matthew Darsh has taken, and I don't know Lou had any influence. I'm sure Scott Malkin did. It's his team. But I feel like Matthew Darsh is his own guy, his own general manager, and he's being aggressive, and I think that's something to be commended.
Agreed.
Bobber says, at this point, what odds would you place on Sorokin winning the Vezina?
I mean, everybody seems to be saying playoffs have to be part of that equation, right? If he doesn't make the playoffs, then he's not getting it.
Right. If he stands on his head these last 4 games and like 4 straight shutouts, and his goals saved above expectation is astronomically ahead of everybody else, then maybe. But, I think we've discussed it before. The league's general managers vote on this. They look at playoffs, I think, most everything else. So even, when I look at Clearside Hockey, Sorokin is still number 1 in GSAX. Logan Thompson is 2. His team's probably not making the playoffs either in Washington.
Right.
So you have to keep going down the list, and you're going to get, Andrei Vasilevsky's not very high up that list, but he seems to have kind of the word of mouth because of the team.
Right.
Because they've been beset by injuries and yada yada. I'm sure that there's other good candidates, but yeah, I think if there's no playoffs, it would probably put it at 50-1 for Sorokin to win.
Okay.
Check Kalshi. DTMR says, do we see Eklund or Yzerman if eliminated?
Good question. I don't know if there's enough time. Here's the thing.
What is the thing?
I'll say about that. Those 2 guys are going to play in the playoffs in Bridgeport.
Yeah.
Why bring them up?
Yeah.
Why bring them up? Let them be part of that team.
Right.
Victor Eklund's looked great. What has he got? 5 points, I think, in his first 6 AHL games. Like, love it. More of it. Why disrupt that to drop him in and play 12 minutes in an Islander game? That doesn't mean anything. Play the meaningful games, and those are. I hope that there's Islanders meaningful games, but if there's not, there will be meaningful games in Bridgeport, so let them stay there.
I agree, and they might actually have a little squad next year if Aitchison comes up too, right?
Yeah, I mean, watching Victor Eklund play, I don't think he's going to last too long in the AHL next season.
Which is not a bad thing.
I wouldn't be surprised
either.
if he starts there, but this is a kid who seems pretty determined to be an NHL player, so I like what I see so far.
Love to hear it.
From James Walsh, he says, is coach allowed to bench Palat or Soucy, or Darch wouldn't allow that because it would make him look bad?
Yeah, I don't think you're hiring Peter DeBoer to tell him how to coach.
Yeah.
That's just my feeling. So if he wants to bench those guys, also benching Soucy for what? I mean, for Isaiah George, I guess, but they got bigger problems in that defense than Carson Soucy. He hasn't been good, and we were certainly uttering some unpleasant things at the big screen at Chris and Tony's.
Yeah, this is true.
But yeah, their D. Again, we can talk about this in the season wrap up. I think their defense needs a major overhaul, and that's the D core is not the reason why they've lost these games. It's everybody, but I think when we start looking towards next season, I think that D core is going to look a lot different.
I agree, and just to answer the question directly, like if he wants to bench these guys, he will.
I think he'll do.
Yeah.
Here's a real Thomas Boyle question. When does Malkin sell the team?
What?
I asked in another podcast, who is replacing Wah?
Tom, are you buying the team?
What a dream come true that would be.
And we'd definitely get Tom on the show if he bought the Islanders, right?
He would become the host of the the show, I think, actually.
You're kicking me out.
I think both of us would get kicked out.
I don't think he's selling.
No. No, and why would you want him to? This is the best era this team has had since the 80s. I mean, they got the building. Yes, there's been some ups and downs, but I mean, it's not all going to be perfect. But for crying out loud, this is the best stretch of time the Islanders have been in since their heyday. Embrace it. I was there for the 90s. It was awful. We survived it. Let's try to have some fun. Let's see what Petey DeBoer can do.
Fair enough. Ludiculous says, with Wagon, do we see the resurgence of Anthony Duclair?
I don't think so, but I mean, you never know. I know that there were some guys getting maintenance days and stuff like that, but I did find it interesting that Shabanov was in some of the practice lines. Now, again, that might just be because guys were out.
It seems like he went right back to whatever the playing 18 was.
Right? Yeah.
With D'Angelo came in, George came right out.
Soucy still at Mayfield.
Duclair popped out. Yeah, it's still the same. Soucy and Mayfield.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how it's going to go with a coach like him, if he
Right.
can really change what they've been doing the last few weeks. But yeah, I did note that it was like, oh, I mean, I think Shabanov stayed in and McLean is out.
Right.
But yeah, it pretty much looks the same as it did before.
And not for nothing, even with 3 practice days, like, can you really blame the guy for deferring to his carryover staff? By the way, let's give him a training camp to figure that stuff out, right?
Yeah.
Another one from Bobbers. He says, "Is hiring DeBoer a detriment to the young talent that's coming here and the ones coming?"
I mean, you look at his track record, like Timo Meyer, Thomas Hertel in San Jose, like. Some of those young guys in Dallas really thrived. Wyatt
Jason
Johnston.
Robertson,
yeah. Like I don't,
not to me.
There's definitely coaches who prefer veterans, but to me, that's every single one, including a first-year coach. Like your veterans are the guys who set the tone, who lay the foundation for the younger guys. You're not just going to let guys run wild, especially younger guys, and those are usually teams that aren't any good. So I'm curious to see what he'll do, but I think he certainly comes in here understanding that Cal Ritchie, Matthew Schaefer, Victor Eklund, Cole Eiserman, like, that's the future of the team.
Yes.
So you're not going to deny them. You're not going to come in and say, Matthew Schaefer, hey, could you just chip the puck out a little bit more? Like, no, this is the reason why this kid's going to win the Calder unanimously. He's amazing. So,
and
no, Peter DeBoer is too good a coach to come in and start demanding young guys defer and do those kinds of things. And I don't think he's ever done that.
And for the first time in what might be a very long time, depending on how these players shake out, they might have an opportunity to have some high-end players on ELCs to help balance the cap out a little bit, where you can bring in some bigger guys too, right?
Exactly.
So it could be very positive. Now, Ed, one more if you got one.
Yeah, a bit of a similar question to the Palat and Susie bench one before. Craig, regular human bartender, says, did Wah force Palat on top 6 and continuously play Drouin because Darch mandated his acquisitions cannot see the press box?
I don't think Matthew Darch told Patrick Waugh how to coach either.
Yeah. I mean, it's I guess if you want to create a narrative for why guys you don't like on the ice are still on the ice. I mean, sure, suit yourself, but again, an NHL head coach is going to play the guys that he feels are going to give him the best chance to win. So
it's unfortunate that Andre Palat just hasn't really had much of an impact.
He had that goal in the Ranger game, though, to start.
He did.
On the power play, by the way.
10 seconds into his Islander career, he scored. He hasn't scored since. And Susie, I think, I watched Isaiah George play the game that he played. I think any NHL coach is going to choose a 10-year veteran over him at this time of year. It's just the way it is.
Right.
Hasn't worked out, and I think that Susie Mayfield pairing should be shot into the sun. But
as we've discussed,
what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? So that's going to do it for Questions Brewing, which means that's going to do it for Hockey Night in New York. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in live here at the Great Floored Media in Rockville Center. Want to send a huge thanks to Michael Haley and Josh Bailey. Fantastic stuff from those gentlemen. Want to send a big thanks to Razor Kniff and Launstein, attorneys at law ready to fight for you. Nobody likes going to court, but if you have to, call 212-LAW 1500 for a free consultation. And folks, if you haven't already, please rate, review, and subscribe. We would really appreciate that. Arthur Staple, where can we find you, sir?
Stape NHL on Twitter, Art Stape on Blue Sky, and the Tri-State Hockey Report, which has really killed 3-team season in its first year. So
yeah.
Been a good
way
one
to go,
so
guys.
I know. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You can find myself at Shawnee Hockey on the Twitter and Blue Sky. You can follow the show on all social media platforms at Hockey Night NY. You can check out the website at hockeynightny.com. Jake the Snake, I know you're not sitting down with us anymore, but at Jake Radonis, right? On Twitter, right? You can find him, the Snake Den. That's right. Let's see what else. Yes, like I said, we will be back on Sunday, 1 p.m. Bagel Boss Hewlett, come on down and hang out. A little bagel before the stable. And we'll see what's going on with this Islanders team. Come hang out with us. And hopefully there'll be some fun things to talk about.
At least
or dreadful things.
At least we'll have some good bagels with Donnie over there.
That is guaranteed. Yeah. Can't wait to see Donnie and the crew. So for Arthur Staple, for Jake the Snake Radonis, for Edzo, and Happy Jay Belsky here at Floored Media, I've been Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night in New York. We will see you at Bagel Boss.